The views and opinions expressed on America's Workforce Union podcast and its digital media channels are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of the producers or sponsors.
Welcome to the America's Workforce Radio Podcast, the flagship production of the American Workers Radio and Podcast Network, where organized labor and its never-ending fight to protect the rights of the American worker come first. Now, presented by LIUNA, Laborers International Union of North America. Here's your host, Ed Flash Ferens.
The U.S.-Canadian trade war, the general president of Laborers International speaking out. Meanwhile, strike over at Hyundai in South Korea. And today on the show, the Heat and Frost Insulators Local 6 in Massachusetts. Welcome to the Thursday, August 27th edition of America's Workforce, where we are available on at least 5 platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. Well, today is Trades Day here on America's Workforce. Our featured guest is Jeff Saliba. Now, Jeff is filling in for Pete Ielmini of the Heat and Frost Insulators Mechanical Insulators Trust, and we talked to Pete last month about a report out of Boston where hospitals there consume 4 times more energy than other buildings in the city. Big problem? Well, insulation, especially when it comes to mechanical insulation. So Jeff is going to talk about that. Little background, he's a lifelong union mechanical insulator, more than 3 decades at Local 6. They have about 600 members, active members. He's a veteran tradesman, organizer, and advocate. And he's going to talk about the Massachusetts Recovery Council. He's been sober for a couple of decades, how important that is. Also, we're going to touch on something that's really near and dear to Jeff's heart. Individualism versus collectivism in the building trades. I mean, there's a reason unions band together for the collective good, but some people don't really see it that way. So he's going to talk about that as well. Again, the website to go to, insulators6.org. Jeff Saliba, our featured guest on the show today. Now, a brief look into the world of labor. This segment brought to you by Boyd Watterson Asset Management. You can find more at boydwatterson.com. Brent Booker, General President of our presenting sponsor here on America's Workforce. That would be the Laborers International Union of North America, better known as LIUNA. They released the following statement in reaction to the ongoing news surrounding the U.S.-Canadian trade war. And this is what Brent's saying today. LIUNA represents working people on both sides of the border. Our members build together, work together, and stand together. We are deeply concerned by escalating tariffs and trade disputes that threaten jobs, raise the cost of construction, and create uncertainty for working families and the industries that employ them. Workers should never become collateral damage in a political or trade fight. LIUNA is one union across 2 nations, and our solidarity does not stop at the border. No premier, governor, senator, member of parliament, president, or prime minister will divide the 540,000 proud brothers and sisters of LIUNA. We must always put jobs over politics. Politics may cross borders, but so does solidarity. That is the statement from Brent Booker, General President of Laborers International, LIUNA.org. And speaking of the tariffs, according to the Yale Budget Lab, United States tariffs will cost the typical American household more than $1,000 per year. The forecast arrives amid a flurry of fresh levies imposed on Canadian products after a collapse in trade negotiations over the weekend. Canada, on Tuesday, announced levies of its own that will take effect on September 8th, the day after Labor Day. The Hyundai Motors branch of the Korean Metalworkers Union has come to a tentative agreement with Hyundai following their first full-day strike in a decade, which we covered earlier this week. Now, they have been looking for concessions regarding retirement age, bonus increases, and termination reinstatements. Now, while the deal is still subject to a vote of member approval, it includes a 4.1% base pay increase, bonuses equal to 400% of base pay. Wow. And additional cash bonuses. The company also agreed to hire 500 more tech workers and said it would continue discussions with workers about its potential plan to implement robotic workers and AI in its factories in the coming years. Workers represented by the Service Employees International Union, or better known as SEIU, and the Cleveland Public Library avoided a strike on Monday of this week, reaching a tentative agreement with less than an hour to go before a strike deadline. Terms of the agreement were not immediately available. The workers are holding a ratification vote on the agreement right now. A representative from Cleveland Public Library said the library's board of trustees will meet at noon later this week for a ratification vote. Now, nearly 400 Cleveland Public Library workers were prepared to strike after voting to reject the library's final contract offer. This was last Friday. That agreement, by the way, reached after 11 months of bargaining and more than 40 negotiation sessions between SEIU District 1199 members and the library. Union members said the top sticking points throughout the process include wages, health care benefits, and language dictating how the union must conduct their business. Members have contended that in many cases, employees do not make living wages, and in general, pay has not kept up with inflation. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Local 6 of the Heat and Frost Insulators right here on America's Workforce. Don't go away.
You're listening to America's Workforce with Ed Flash Ferens.
It takes LiUNA to power North America with affordable energy. The men and women of LiUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, have the skills needed to build and maintain oil, natural gas, nuclear, solar, and wind projects that are shaping America's energy future. From new energy tech to retrofitted facilities, LiUNA members do it all. Find out what it takes to be powered by LiUNA at liuna.org. That's liuna.org.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the United Steelworkers. You can find more at usw.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Communication Workers of America. You can find more at cwa-union.org.
America's Workforce appreciates our sponsor, the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council, who represents more than 18,000 workers from 19 affiliated local unions and district councils.
The Iron Workers Great Lakes District Council, consisting of 8 iron worker local unions in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan. We build the skylines and bridges along the Great Lakes. With more work than ever before, the Great Lakes District Council is actively searching out the next great iron worker, whether it's building the next Intel plant or constructing a bridge to safely connect our great cities along the lake. So join the Iron Workers Great Lakes District Council today. Find out how and learn more about the council by visiting iwdistrictcouncil.com. America's Workforce is presented by the Laborers International Union of North America. Feel the power right now at liuna.org. This segment of the show is brought to you by the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. For more information, please visit bmwe.org.
Now, back to America's Workforce. Here's Ed Flash Ferens.
And remember, you can check us out on Facebook or follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter. That would be AWF Union Podcast, AWF Union Podcast. You may recall last month, and every month we check in with Pete Ielmini on behalf of the Labor Management Trust of the Heat and Frost Insulators. We're talking about this report dealing with Boston hospitals consuming a lot of energy, 4 times more energy than other buildings in the city. And that's a call to action as far as I'm concerned. And the Heat and Frost Insulators are there for the rescue. Joining us from the Boston area today, filling in for Pete Ielmini, is Jeff Saliba. Now, Jeff is the business manager for the Heat and Frost Insulators Local 6. They have about 600 active members, covering pretty much all of New England and a portion of Connecticut. Jeff, welcome back to the show. We were talking about you last month, and I said, you know what? Let's get Jeff on the podcast, talk about what's going on over there. And, well, why don't you first fill me in on yourself, your journey into the heat and frost insulators. Let's start there, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I come from a union family. My mom and dad both were union members. My mother worked for the state as a correctional officer, and then she was a court guard there. And my dad worked for what was the Boston Edison, which is now Eversource. And I have 5 brothers and sisters, and every single one of us were union members. And I was one of the youngest, and that's what the conversation was at the dinner table.
Any reason you decided to go to the insulators?
Actually, I got into the laborers first down here at Local 223, which is a good, strong union down the street from us. Both my brothers were there, and my father worked over at the Edison. And there was a chance for me to make a little bit more money doing the asbestos removal. My father pretty much told me I was going over there. So that's what I did. And, I did that for 4 years, the asbestos removal, and then got into the insulation program here.
Now, let me ask you, when you take asbestos away from wherever it's laid out, most of the times in pipes. I know I worked at the Justice Center in downtown Cleveland, and that was built back in the early 70s. They used a lot of asbestos. When it comes to removing that, I'm hoping you had all the equipment to make sure that you were safe when you were taking that out. Can you speak to that?
Sure, yeah. We did a lot of training here at the local, and we still do the training here in our apprenticeship program. But yeah, you get suited up and you go in there and, you do the best you can. Sometimes, you get a little lazy and you might take your mask off when you shouldn't, or you're somewhere where you shouldn't. But for the most part, I did what I was supposed to do. Shower out and take off all the stuff. It was a tough job, man. I'll tell you, there was a lot of sweat there.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'll bet. Let's talk about this report that came out. And it was the Commonwealth Beacon investigation titled, "With Public Health at Stake, Many Boston Hospitals Struggle to Meet the City's Air Pollution Goals." And this is where they discovered that, a lot of the hospitals, well, they need to be updated. They need to be remodeled. And I know with new construction that, they are definitely more energy efficient. But when this report came out, I take it you were probably not very surprised, were you?
No, but, we have members working over there all the time. We probably do 95% of the work over there, whether it's maintenance or contract work. My members are over there in the tunnels. I know I worked over at Brigham and Women's Hospital for years in the steam tunnels down there. I mean, the maze of piping in there is, you wouldn't even believe. I mean, it's everywhere.
Do you find it kind of surprising that a lot of people, and I talk to Pete about this all the time. He says, this is common sense. Insulation saves money, and especially mechanical insulation. A lot of people don't even understand, the difference between insulation, like what you put in your house, and mechanical insulation. And that's part of the conversation. But do you find yourself in that kind of a predicament saying, okay, we better invest now because we're trying to save you money? You follow me on that?
So, I do. I go over we talk to the engineers over there. We try to explain to them that properly installed insulation, not just regularly installed insulation. You could put anything around anything and get some kind of savings out of it. But if you properly install it, it allows your equipment to live out its life expectancy. I mean, you don't want the thing running more often than it has to. You're going to end up changing stuff out. You got to be maintenance. It's going to cost you a lot more money, in maintenance and fuel, because most of it's all gas over there,
Yeah.
I don't know how they want to go to net zero. I don't know how they're going to do that in the time span that they want. But, I try to remind them that insulation will reduce your carbon footprint. And sometimes they seem to forget about us,
Yeah.
and I don't understand that. I really, really don't understand that. Try running your equipment without us.
Well, there's a push, with the Federal Mechanical Insulation Act, and I'm sure you got a lot of federal buildings over there in the New England area. It's making some progress. We're following it here on America's Workforce. What about your apprenticeship programs right now? Because, eventually I feel this is going to happen. This eventually is going to happen. It takes a while for things to get through Congress. But that being said, you probably are ramping up right now for that time, right?
We were in a little lull here in Boston. I mean, we had unprecedented times here for the last 14 years. I couldn't get enough help here. I had, at one time, 140 travelers in the area just doing commercial work because they've closed our power plants over here in favor of windmills and solar panels. And that, to me, doesn't create much opportunity for anybody. But our apprenticeship, we probably have about 80 people now. I'm always looking for good people. I'm on the hunt for good people. We've made a concerted effort to root out some of the people that they take this opportunity for granted, entitlement, and I'm trying to root those people out. And I think we've gotten some good people that understand what it means and how just to be a little bit grateful for the opportunity without a formal education here to get a career that pays good wages and good benefits and to protect that. It's very hard to get people on the same page. And I can get into the individualism about that later, but we do have a strong apprenticeship program. We just bought the building next door. We paid over $3 million for it. We're retrofitting it now. And we have classes in there now. We just got a lot of grant money from the state, close to $700,000 in grant money, and we bought sewing machines for those for the pad making classes we put on, upgrading our mechanics, and we pay their wages for that. We got a strong apprenticeship program here, very strong.
That's good to hear. Let's talk about worker safety, physical and mental, especially mental health. And how important this issue is. I understand you're part of the Massachusetts Recovery Council, which is an arm of the state building trades. And we have referenced this on the show many, many times. So, the new ones coming in, you got to make sure that they're safe on the job. They understand what they're getting into. I mean, trades, it could be tough on your body. We understand that. So I'm just wondering what you're doing over there, Local 6, to prepare the workers, and if they have a problem, where they need to go to.
I've been sober for 20 years, over 20 years. So this is dear to my heart. I talk to these apprentices ad nauseum about taking care of themselves, about drug issues and alcoholism. As you know, it hits construction workers the hardest, alcohol and drug addiction. So I'm on top of this. I have a license, a Massachusetts license in alcohol and drug addiction counseling. They know where I stand with this. I'm not a big fan of harm reduction. I'm not one out there handing out needles or anything like that. I'm more of a structured kind of person. We have an EAP that I work closely with called Modern Assistance Programs. We have in our apprenticeship program, there was a time you would sign, if you got, so there's no drug policy here for and the apprentices can get tested at random at any time.
Mm-hmm.
If they're caught with drugs in their system, we send them to our EAP. They sign a last chance agreement. They have to adhere. I make them go there for the rest of their apprenticeship for however long, whether you're second year, third year, fourth year. You have to check in with them. They drug test you. If they need counseling, they get you counseling. But you have to adhere to the program that they set up for you. You can't deviate from that. If you deviate from that, we will drop you from the program. If we do drop you from the program, if I catch you a second time, we drop you from the program. Those benefits, those services are available to you for the rest of your life. You can go over to our map, to Modern Assistance, to our EAP, and utilize those services for the rest of your life if you want. Our goal is to help you get sober and live a clean, healthy life. Now, if you do that once we throw you out, 10 to 12 months, you can petition the JAC to come back into the program. We have a lot of people that has happened to, and we've had a lot of success with that, probably around 60%, which is good, very good in the addiction world. Usually it's 8 touches to a person before they get sober. it's a great program. If an apprentice comes to me and tells me that they have an issue, they don't have to sign a last chance agreement. But they do have to adhere to anything that MAP does. If they don't, then they sign the last chance agreement. I have to have a policy here. I can't be wishy-washy. I can't treat somebody one way and somebody another way. I'm not like that. I don't do that. I get too confused if I do that. How's that? So, and it opens us up to a lawsuit too, if you do that. So I have to take, in my position, I have to be aware of the person's needs and also the local's needs, so you got to wear both those hats sometimes. And, sometimes it's not easy to find that medium, but you get there,
Yeah.
The Recovery Council is great. They do a great job. The Massachusetts Recovery Council, they're having a walk on a wellness walk on, I believe it is the 13th of September. They raise a lot of money. They do a lot of good work, actually.
I've heard good things about them, really good things about them. That's interesting. So you cut them a little slack. Cut them a little slack here, get in the program, get better. And if you're not going to get better, you're out. You're out. But you have a chance to come back. Did I hear it correctly? A year later? Is that right?
True. Yep. 10 to 12 months later, you can petition the JAC to come back. If you get a favorable report from an assistance from our EAP, we'll bring you back, But if you're clowning around and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, maybe some other time.
Yeah, a little tough love there. I get it. Jeff Saliba is our featured guest on the show today. He is the business manager of Local 6 of the Heat and Frost Insulators. Here's the website you want to go to. It's Insulators, that's plural, Insulators, the number 6, Insulators6.org. You mentioned individualism versus collectivism in the building trades. Let's talk about that next right here on America's Workforce. Back in a few minutes. Don't go away.
You're listening to America's Workforce with Ed Flash Ferens.
It takes LIUNA to keep America running. Over 70,000 public employees are part of LIUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, delivering critical services such as healthcare and emergency response, as well as maintaining roads and sanitation systems. Even the National Postal Mail Handlers Union, representing over 47,000 U.S. postal workers, is affiliated with LIUNA. Find out what it takes for LIUNA to keep America running at liuna.org. That's liuna.org.
America's Workforce Radio is sponsored in part by the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, District Council 6, representing painters, glazers, drywall finishers, and sign and display industry workers. They remind you that belonging to a union is your right as an American.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Iron Workers. You can find more at ironworkers.org.
There is unity and strength for workers.
We are the USW.
We are the USW.
The United Steelworkers.
The largest industrial union in North America.
We represent 850,000 members in the U.S., Canada, and the Caribbean.
We work in metals,
rubber,
chemicals,
paper,
oil refining,
atomic energy, and the service sector.
We are steelworkers, standing strong and fighting for what's right.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers. You can find more at ifpte.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, where you can find more at teamster.org. Founded in 1887, the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters represents the employees responsible for tirelessly constructing and maintaining the national rail system in America. For more than a century, the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees has proven they have what it takes to protect its members and meet the ever-changing challenges of the rail industry. Today, the BMWED continues to fight for job security, fair wages, better benefits, and safer, more modern work environments. For more information, please visit bmwe.org.
America's Workforce is sponsored in part by Boyd Watterson Asset Management, LLC. Find out more about our investment solutions tailored to meet the needs of Taft-Hartley funds at boydwatterson.com.
Now, back to America's Workforce. Here's Ed Flash Ferens.
And remember, you can check us out on at least 5 platforms. That includes YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. And when you get an opportunity, here's what you do. Just sign up and receive our shows on a regular basis and give us a rating. Always appreciate those 5-star ratings, so please keep them coming. Our featured guest today on Trades Day, every Tuesday and Thursday is Trades Day here on America's Workforce, where we focus on a specific trade. Today, it's the insulators. Local 6 in the New England area. Insulators, 6.org. Business Manager Jeff Saliba is our featured guest today. Jeff, I want to talk about today's workers, and you mentioned something in the first segment about individualism versus collectivism. And this is an interesting conversation. You're a longtime union guy. You're a business manager for a number of years. You've seen people come and go. You talked about recovery. We touched on that. What do you make of the worker today and what's happening on the job?
It's not that they're not hard workers, and it's not that they don't show up and go to work, although we do have that issue sometimes, but it's decisions. A lot of these decisions that guys make on the jobs, whether it's break time, whether it's showing up on time, whether it's being professional on the job, being a good craftsman, taking your lunch when you're supposed to and leaving on time. A lot of decisions are based on convenience. And listen, I don't think it's their fault. I think it's just a culture of America. Since the 50s, they've been showing you TV shows like Gunsmoke and all that. And that cowboy out on the range doesn't need the government, doesn't need anybody, up until Reagan with that individualism, that they don't need anything from the government. They don't need this. They can stand on their own. They can pull themselves up by their bootstraps, blah, 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 blah. And that doesn't work well in a collective. You can't have 600 members, individuals, moving in different directions. We here as a business managers of locals to, secure good wages and benefits and conditions so we can feed, clothe, insure, educate, and house our families. We can't afford to get caught up in wedge issues, gods, guns, gays, and gynecology and immigration. This is a capitalistic country.
Yep.
You have to go to the voting polls to vote for your family, not your gun. I'm sorry, but it's not your gun. It's not your views on abortion. It's not your views on God. It's how you feed, clothe, insure, house, and educate your family. That's how I go to the polls. And I vote for politicians who have those same values. That's how I vote. Right. I mean, and if our members could get on that page and understand that and what we're trying to do here for our families, for our futures, for our retirement and the dignity that comes with that, we would be a force to be reckoned with. A force to be reckoned with. But, I'll give you an example if we got a minute,
Sure.
We were allocating money on a raise. And I couldn't help, we were going to take 45 cents. Well, we did take 45 cents to put it in the annuity. All right.
Mm-hmm.
There was a guy that raised his hand and he wanted to take that 45 cents and put it in his pocket, put it in the check. Now he plays the stock market. He may be able to use that 45 cents and maybe manage it better than maybe our fund could. Maybe he could. I don't know. Maybe. But he didn't take into consideration, not once did he take into consideration the other 599 people that are in this local who don't have that ability to get into the stock market. And it just hit me, it makes me sad, to be honest with you. It does. It makes me sad, and I'll tell you, even some of our unions, individual unions, have become individualized. Hooray for me.
Yeah.
I get mine, screw him. I hate to see it and I hate to say it, but that's how I'm seeing it these days.
Yeah,
You know, and it's not anybody's fault. It's just the culture of America. And it's hard to have that individual culture come into a collective and think we.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, let me ask you, is this a generational thing? Is this more for the younger folks coming in, or is it for all the local?
Like I said, I think that's, I see it as the Republican agenda to individualize everybody. You get no power now. If you're an individual, you're not getting anything done. They want to divide you.
I gotcha. Okay.
They want to divide you. This has been happening since the 50s, the 60s. Look at Fox News. I put on Fox News. I put on CNN, and it's amazing. They're like living in two different universes.
Right.
Two of them. And listen, those are billionaires that own those news companies.
Uh-huh.
They know what they're doing. They're dividing us. They're dividing us, the worker. And then Donald Trump turns around and gives themselves trillions of dollars in tax cuts while they take away Medicaid. That is the biggest movement of money from the bottom 90% to the top 1% that I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable to me that our members cannot see that. To have Elon Musk up on a stage celebrating, firing union workers and thinking that's okay. I was blown away by that.
So, Jeff, what's the answer to that? How do we get to these members here that are, they watch this day in and day out. They're on their phones watching it. I mean, this is tough to cut through. What's the answer to that?
I write letters. I write letters to my membership. I do. I have my secretary send them out. I don't know if they fall on deaf ears or what, but I'm doing what I can. I mean, I am. I'm doing what I can. I just my business agent Tom Wall is great. He gets it. Him and I, we're all for the we. But.
Well, I can tell you, you're not alone. I spent a lot of time at the Ironworkers office. In fact, when we started podcasting this show, was down at Local 17. They're dealing with the same issues, and I think all the unions are dealing with that right now. It's a tough one. It's a tough one, and it's just the world we live in. But you got to keep talking. You can't give up. I mean, that's the best advice I can give you on this situation right now. I could feel your frustration. I hear what you're saying. It's a crazy world that we live in today, but you got to hang in there. We got to stick to the fact that, hey, you know what? You're in a union because, number one, you want better wages. You want to make sure your pension is there. You want to make all these programs that started years ago under Roosevelt.
And let's just be a little honest. We're in a union because we live in an economy that's rigged against people that don't have formal educations like us. That's why we're in there, because we could not individually pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. I mean, let's be honest. If I had to do what I'm doing now, if I had to do insulation, non-union insulation, right, I'd be eligible for Medicaid.
How about that?
Yeah, I'd be eligible for food stamps with my wife and my kids. Let's be real here. Not hooray for me and the hell with everybody else. This is a we thing. So that's where I'm at with that. It's 60 years old.
There you go. Well, Jeff, that's one thing I like about this show. It takes you in all different kind of directions, and it's important that people like yourself speak from the heart, and that's exactly what you're doing here on the show today. So, my hats off to you, brother. Keep up the fight over there in New England. You got a good area there. It's pretty pro-union area. I mean, be glad that you're not working in a right-to-work state, okay?
Yeah, but no, believe me, I am very grateful for that. Very grateful for that. I don't take anything for granted here. Absolutely not. I do not. I don't feel entitled to it or anything. I thank God every morning that I got what I got.
One more thing before we button this up. We're doing this series here on the show called Labor 132. This Labor Day, which is right around the corner, is 132 years in the making. It was declared a national holiday back in 1894. I'd like to get your message to those listening to this podcast right now. I think you already gave some of that in your talk about what's going on with workers today, but let's just leave it on that note. What do you think?
So for this Labor Day, I just want to remind every union member that you belong to a political organization. And we're here to fight for good wages and benefits so we can clothe, insure, feed, educate, and house our families together. We're in this together. And all it takes is a phone call. When you belong to a union, you're expected to make a sacrifice for the greater good. I'm just asking the members out there, when the union asks you to call the politician in favor of something, call them. It's a simple phone call. Call the office, state your name, where you live, and tell them you're in favor of that bill, and bang. That's all you got to do. When you get enough people to do that, things get moving then.
Jeff, thank you so much. Jeff Saliba, Business Manager of the Heat and Frost Insulators Local 6 in the New England area. Website is insulator6.org. You stay safe and stay in touch. Okay, brother?
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
And that'll be it for another edition of America's Workforce. Coming up tomorrow, a member of the House Labor Caucus will be joining us, Debbie Dingle out of Michigan. Until then, all of you have a safe and wonderful day.
That concludes another episode of the America's Workforce Radio Podcast. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a show. America's Workforce is a production of Labor Tools and BMA Media Group. Find out more information online at labortools.com.